Yo, so what a lot of people don't know when they're getting started in the e-commerce world is that a lot of times email marketing can really make or break your store. And in this video, I brought in my friend Jonathan Zamora, who is a seven-figure email marketing expert. I mean, this guy is literally the best when it comes to email marketing, and his journey has been pretty similar to mine. He's generated a couple million in e-com and then sold his business to then start an email marketing agency. But we had an amazing hour-long conversation on his email marketing secrets. But not just that, we also talked about some mindset stuff and just some really, really great things that I'm sure you guys are going to love. And we actually had this conversation live in the NetSphere Mastermind channel on the NetSphere Discord, which is available right now. And if you actually sign up this weekend, you'll be able to get our Ecom 101 course for free and all of the past conversations that we've had with other seven-figure entrepreneurs. But let's not waste any more time. With all that said, let's get right into it. How you doing today, bro?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really, really good. It's been a nice, busy, productive morning. As you know, I wake up super early, and so I've been at
Yeah.
it for 8 hours now.
Oh, what?
How about
Already
you?
today?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah, I
my
wake up
God.
at 4.
That's crazy, bro. I mean, you've already pulled an 8 hour day. And for a lot of people, it's still the beginning of the day. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's nice. That's why I like waking up early. It's such a head start on the day. Not a lot of people are up, at 5, 6, 7 a.m. And so you just don't get interrupted at all. You just get to focus on whatever you have that's
True.
important.
That's so true. Okay, so I'm actually recording this. So if you wouldn't mind just giving your like a quick introduction, like a little elevator pitch to yourself, I guess, like what you do and whatnot, just so people know who you are if they don't already.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they definitely won't know because I look pretty anonymous on Discord right now. My name is Jonathan Zamora. I am the founder and owner of a email and SMS company called Settler Systems. Before I started Settler Systems, I had a seven-figure e-commerce brand that I sold. That was back in probably 2019, 2020. I don't really remember the year. It's weird. I always think about this, Ari. I've been thinking about it a lot more lately.
Mm-hmm.
Me and you started talking very, very early on in our e-commerce journey. You were a little bit ahead of me. You were already doing,
Mm-hmm.
20K a month or something like that. And I really looked up to you and I was like, man, this guy's killing it. We've been in the game for a while now. I was talking to, so yeah, is that enough of an elevator pitch
Oh
for
yeah,
me?
that's totally perfect, bro. Perfect.
Okay.
And you're right.
Yeah, and I was talking with this kid Nathan yesterday. He's another YouTuber. He's blown up recently. He's at like 25, 30K subs. He's does e-commerce as well. I was talking with him yesterday on the phone, and he was like, "Yeah, man, you've been in the game for a while. Like, what can you, what kind of advice can you give me?" And I'm like, "Holy crap, man! I'm now the old guy in e-com, which is a weird thing."
Yeah, you're like an OG.
Yeah, now I'm one of the OGs. But yeah, it's been good, man. Email and SMS started. We started that about almost a year and a half ago, and now that's our only focus, just to kind
Wow.
of tie off the
Yeah, dude, time
introduction for me.
flies. That's crazy. I remember just yesterday when you like were starting your agency and it's already been a year and a half. How crazy.
I know it's insane. The agency game is totally different than e-commerce. I don't really know where you want to take this
Yeah,
convo, but
please let us
that's
know
one of the things
how
that has
different is
been.
it? How different is it? I'm actually curious because a lot of people, well, right now everybody is either already has like their business that they're kind of, running or trying to run or figuring out like what they want to do, like where they want to start. So we got like those two different types of people. So how different is it, the agency game with just ecom?
Yeah, well, I think at its core, I think there's a couple of major differences. The major difference for me between e-commerce and agency work is e-commerce, your leverage, basically the thing that's going to allow you to scale either quickly or slowly, is going to be really capital intensive. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a lot of money, you could crush it in e-commerce pretty quickly. Um, Obviously, you have to have skill sets and things like that, but the leverage that you have is going to be capital, and then also your product. So you have a manufacturer that's kind of just stamping this product over and over again, and it's just being created. And so it's super easy to scale with a product-based business whenever you have manufacturers, especially if you're not in control of the manufacturing. It makes it a little bit easier for you, fulfillment-wise, to scale, because then you just really worry about the marketing, the branding, and things like that.
True.
So e-commerce leverage is capital, and you have products that are being created by somebody else for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And then with agencies, the leverage that you have is people, which is completely different than the e-commerce game. So whenever whenever I was in e-commerce, I really only had like 3, 4 employees that were working for me at a time. I really didn't have any leadership structure. I didn't really have to worry too much about systems or processes or like HR problems, really all that much. But with the agency game, it's so much more people intensive, which there's some downsides to that. Obviously, it's not as scalable to scale with people as it is with capital and products. But yeah, overall, it's they're
Yeah, I
both
see
good.
that.
People always ask like which one's better. You could do either.
Yeah, dude, that's a good answer. I mean, that's not the answer that people want. They like want to be told what to do, but that's the same thing I say too when I get asked like, how should I start? Like, I don't know what to do. Now, the one thing I do think this is kind of a paradox, but I see this a lot. The one thing I do think is beneficial with the agency model is like you can learn skills, which is nice, but at the same time, I feel like if you're selling a service that you don't know that you can do, then you can, I don't know, you may get like a lot of negative feedback from your clients and then get extra discouraged and now like you feel terrible about yourself or something. So I would recommend if somebody doesn't have like any skills and you want to start an agency, do it for free or something, so that no matter what, like there's nothing to lose, right? You'll still learn the skills and then you won't have like a terrible reputation like right off the bat. So I don't know. That's something I thought about.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think it's a really good point. One of the things that I learned pretty early on with the whole agency model, and thankfully I already had the skill sets with email and SMS because I did it with my e-commerce brands leading up to that. But it's something that I've learned for other people whenever they're starting agencies, and something that I plan on doing whenever I, move into other service-based businesses, because I would like to sell up Settler and at some point sell it. Whenever I move into other agencies, I think it is a good point that it's like, okay, you have to know what you're doing. It's obviously way better if you know how to deliver the service before you sell it. But for me, there is like one little caveat to that. I think it is important to actually sell before you create. And the only reason I mention that is I feel like so many people just get stuck in this mode where they're just trying to have the perfect product or the perfect brand name or the colors or all this kind of stuff. And the reason I think a lot of the times people do that is because it's so much easier to work on the branding and work on all that kind of stuff than it is to deal with rejection and not being good enough.
That's true.
And so they kind of end up getting into this mode where they're trying to make it perfect, where I think it's better to just say, okay, what's my offer? What am I looking to deliver? How can I provide as much value as possible? Do the background research and find out what's important to that audience, and then try to sell it. And whenever you sell it, offer a guarantee. Hey, this is the transformation. Because agency world is actually very similar to e-commerce world, where like copywriting and the basis of it is also similar. So like, with an agency, you're delivering a transformation. You're saying, I'm going to take you from X to Y in Z amount of days. So I help e-commerce entrepreneurs scale from, $0 to $100,000 in 90 days or less.
Right.
That isn't our promise, but that's just an example of that. You could then put a guarantee behind it where it's like, okay, if we don't hit at least half of that, I'll refund your money. Or if we don't, deliver that, then I'll continue to work with you until you do. And then what that allows you to do is actually build that skill set and learn without having that like kind of bad name out of the gate, right? Because
That's
you're promising to deliver that service or give the money back. But I think you're right. You shouldn't sell like 100 people and then try to figure it out. Sell one person, figure it out, and then go from there.
That's a really good. I like that. So that's like literally the perfect in between. I think is so you just solve that problem. It's like you just offer a guarantee. That way you can still charge for a service that maybe you're not 100% certain that you can deliver right away. I guess if you have no prior experience. But then offering a guarantee, then you're still safe, and your client is still gonna be really happy no matter what, because they either get their money back or nothing happens. That's great. That's a really good solution. So I want to ask you this. I know lately we've been talking about this like privately a bit, but how do you focus your time? Like, do you think it's better to focus? I mean, I already know the answer to this, but would you rather focus on one thing or diversify a bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something that we talk about a lot, and I think that we very much so align. There's 2 books that I feel like really gave me a lot of perspective on this, and I'll kind of just give some context. I've always felt like I was an entrepreneur. Ever since I was, a little kid, I always thought,
I think you cut out
can you
for
hear
a
me okay?
bit, but I can hear you
Oh,
perfectly now. So you said ever since you were
okay.
a little kid, you felt like an entrepreneur, and that's the last thing I heard.
So I was just saying, ever since I was a kid, I always felt like an entrepreneur. I didn't know that's what it was called at the time, but I was constantly going through and testing business after business after business. And after I would find the first thing that was wrong with that business, I'd be like, oh, let me go ahead and try something else. And it wasn't until I read one book called The One Thing that I that I was like, oh, like instead of trying to switch from business to business to business, I should really just like plant my feet and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And if there's other people that are successful, I can make it successful too. And that happened to be e-commerce for me. And that's when I actually started getting momentum and started seeing results and starting to see the fruits of my labor. So that book I feel like was very foundational for me in kind of developing the philosophy that it's really important for you to just dial in on one specific thing and be much more like a laser than just trying to spread your energy across many things, because you lose so much energy transferring from thing to thing to thing to thing.
True.
And
And
so
momentum
this
too.
happens at like a and momentum. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And this is on a macro level and then also on a micro level. So like on a macro level, focusing on one business, whenever you choose a business, that should, whenever you're looking at taking on a new project, that should be a lot more like marriage rather than a hookup. A lot of people, I think, look at, I look at starting a new project as like, okay, this is just a fun little hookup. I'm gonna, see if it works or whatever. But in my opinion, you should be looking at that like marriage, because it's something that you should stick with and you should try to figure
True.
out the solutions to the problems whenever you run across them, rather than just being willing to give it up on the first issue. So that's
Damn.
like on a macro level, on a 2, 3, 5, 10 year basis, focus on one thing for your business or whatever it is, one partner, whatever. And then on a micro level, it's kind of the same thing. I don't know if you do this, Ari, but one of
Mm-hmm.
the most important things that I've done, shifts I've done in the last like year, is starting to batch my work. So I have a lot of work that's, kind of similar in some ways. And so like whenever I record YouTube videos or whenever I record audits for our clients, I'll batch all of that in one day rather
Mm.
than just doing a little bit every single day. So if I have like 10 audits that I'm supposed to record throughout the week, rather than recording 2 a day, I'll just record 10 all in one go. Do you do that?
That's smart. I do that to an extent. So like I do that with YouTube videos. I do that with content that I'm making for my brands too. Like for example, yesterday for me was a content day for my brands. Like I
Okay.
spent like 5 hours like shooting content, making different edits and stuff like that. Whereas in the past, you're right. I've been the type of person to do like, okay, I'll just do one a day. Like I'll spend like 20 minutes a day doing that. And even though that can be effective, it's much more effective for me to just do it all in one go and like put more effort into it right off the bat. So that's a good one. I was actually going to ask you, like, what do you think are some habits that are really important to succeed? I mean, generally in business, and that's definitely one of them. I would say. Do you have any other ones?
Any other, what, you cut out for a second, sorry.
Like habits that are
Oh,
important for
habits.
success in your opinion, and what you define as success.
Yeah, so at the basis, I think batching your work, that's a phenomenal one that I've picked up more
Mm-hmm.
recently. So I batch just about everything at this point. I'm still not perfect at it. It's still, definitely difficult or challenging. Like one thing that I'm really bad at is communication.
Mm.
Communication with, my team, communication with my friends and family. I just get so deep into my work a lot of the times that I just forget about everything else. And so I've batched my communication where I'll just spend 20 to 30 minutes. I carve out a specific part of my day where I just go through and I text everybody that, either message me on Instagram or text messages, or I'll go through and I'll send a nice message to somebody that I haven't talked to in a while. I just have that time carved out every single day. So batching things has been massively effective for me. But I would say the most important habit that I would say I've developed in the last 18 months to 2 years that
Mm-hmm.
has actually allowed me to start making a lot of progress is comes from directly from this book called The Slight Edge. Have you read that book, Ari?
Yeah, bro. That's a banger of a book right there for sure.
Yeah. So for you guys that are listening, would highly, highly recommend The Slight Edge. It's just such a transformative book, and it's one of those concepts that you know already, but we often have to be reminded more often than we have to be taught. And so it was just a really good reminder of the fact that it's like, whenever you're trying to make progress on something, just do a little bit every single day, especially when it's like a really big goal. And so for me, just really making the slight edge a habit, something that is just a part of my character in every facet of life, I would say has been the most transformative. So a couple of small habits that pair with the slight edge is reading 10 pages of a book a day, working out for 45 minutes a day, trying to not eat sugar. I still will enjoy it, but very rarely.
Damn,
Just little things like that,
that's a hard
because
one.
whenever that is a hard one. But whenever you're an entrepreneur, one of the biggest pieces of capital that you have is your energy. So it's different whenever you're an employee. The thing that you are getting paid for is your time. And if you show up 50% one day or 70% the other day, it doesn't matter. But when you're an entrepreneur, you get to control your fate, which is great, but it also could be a detriment if you aren't doing the necessary precautions to make sure that you're protecting your energy and your focus. And so, um, yeah,
Wow, that's so
those are
true.
kind of the basis of the habits.
That's a good one. Is that why you cut out sugar, or or just health reasons? Like, does it affect like your energy and focus mostly, or both?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Have you ever cut out sugar from your diet?
No, I've never really thought about it, to be honest with you. I mean, like, I've always had like a bit of a sweet tooth, but I've never been like extreme though. Like, I've
Hmm.
never gotten a ton of cavities or anything. But no, why?
Yeah, good. Good. Well, so it's really interesting. Whenever you start to cut sugar out of your diet, it's like you're going through withdrawals. You don't realize how important it is, or like how hooked on it you are, until you remove it. So whenever, and that's really the reason that I was like, oh,
I
like,
could see
because I
that.
did it for 75 hard. I did 75 hard and I cut sugar out, and I felt like absolute garbage, and I could not figure out why. For like a week and a half, 2 weeks, I had headaches and I just felt lethargic, and just kind of like, moping around. I'm like, man, what the heck is wrong with me? And as I was kind of like looking into it more and more, it was, just basically me weaning my way off of sugar. And so I've done it twice now, where I like will kind of work completely off of sugar from where I was previously, which might be like, a sweet every, 3 days or something like that. But yeah, that feeling for me was enough to, I guess, freak me out to be like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to have too much sugar. And I feel like it does make me not feel as good. And so yeah, like one of the
Wow.
things I've taken super seriously in the last 6 months is my health. So I just order meal prep for everything, and I don't have to spend any time on it, and I feel good. And because I have that meal prep, I don't eat any sugar really, because it's already there for me.
Damn. Oh, that's smart. So that's really interesting. I didn't know that you were doing meal prep and stuff like that. But you know what? That makes sense, bro. Like, especially knowing you got everything systemized. That's pretty awesome. And by the way, everybody, if you want to ask your own questions, just type them in the general chat, and I'll see it and I'll ask it. But another question that I have for you is, what sort of things in the past have held you back from whatever it is you're trying to accomplish? I mean, I think maybe that would be a helpful thing to look at, because a lot of people maybe don't know what's holding them back. So I'm just curious. I mean, I know it's kind of a tough question because you got to look a little bit past you, like in the past. But what do you think are some things that have held you back?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. It's something that I reflect on for myself frequently. There's a basic theory called the theory of constraints. Have you ever heard that?
Um, no.
No? Okay,
Maybe I
I'll
have. I don't know.
explain it very, very. It's getting more popular, which is interesting. So there's this book called The Goal, and basically what it's all about is it's about this guy who has a manufacturing plant that he's managing, and he's trying to increase its efficiency.
Hmm.
And the whole purpose of the book is to teach you that any system, or really any system, will grow up to its lowest constraint. And so what does that
Uh-oh, I think you cut out again, but we know how to work around this now.
Okay. Yeah, where did you hear last?
You you were just about to explain how um you were just
The
about to get
theory of
into your
yeah.
point, so.
So basically, the theory of constraints just says that if there's
Mhm.
like four steps and step number three is the slowest, the system will only operate at the speed of step number three.
Okay.
It's basically that's the lowest constraint is the thing that's operating the slowest. So that's something that's really useful for business, but that's something that I also try to look at for my life where I'm like, okay, where is my lowest constraint? What's the thing that's currently like throttling all the other areas, which about 6 months
Interesting.
ago for me was my health. The habits that I had around my health or the identity that I also held about who I was as somebody who, didn't really work out or whatever. So, but more recently, one of the things that I feel like in hindsight has been something that has slowed me down more than anything else is comparison.
Mm,
Just comparing myself to other people, to other businesses, to, the results that they have or the goals that they've achieved or whatever it is. And I think comparison's bad for a variety of reasons. Obviously, it's going to make you want to move faster and go on somebody else's journey instead of chasing your
yeah.
own. It's going to encourage you to take shortcuts when you shouldn't. Um, and overall, I just don't think it's really healthy for you. So I think for me, whenever I look at the thing that slowed me down in the last like 2 to 3 years the most, I would say comparison is a big one. And it's
Wow.
something that I'm still actively working through, just to be very candid.
Dude, that's really interesting. I would say for me, funny enough, it's like the same exact thing. I would say comparison has been the true thief of joy in my life because, especially in this space, I mean, well, for two reasons. Like, my take on this is, first of all, we're all competitive people, I think, by nature, like, we're guys, we're like in business, like, we're trying to compete, and like you obviously want to see your friends succeed more than anything, but you also want to succeed yourself and like be like this, just be winning basically. So when you
Right.
see everybody in this space sharing their wins, they're also competing, right? So they're also trying to win. It can be very distracting to look at everybody's wins. First of all, like it's not actually that motivating. Um, you think it's motivating, but I don't know. I don't think it's that motivating, to be honest with you. It's mostly distracting. So that's one thing. But the second
Yeah.
thing is that it really just throws you off in terms of like how you feel about yourself. And I just read about this in this book that I'm reading called Psycho Cybernetics. Have you read it?
Yep. Yeah, I have.
Oh,
That's a
dude.
that's a dense book, man.
It is. I started reading it in Miami last week, and dude, I was like, holy shit, these are some things that I've thought about many times, to be honest with you, but I'd never articulated them, and I'd never been able to really articulate them because I didn't really know how to feel about it. Like, yeah, of course, don't compare yourself, right? But this book really helped me like understand the reason why that's just not only not smart, but it's actually it has more lasting impacts than you would think. So yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah,
Like your journey
absolutely.
is your own journey. Like you should not compare yourself with anybody because like it's just not going to help you in any way. So that's funny.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it feels good to know that you also felt that way because sometimes I even look at you and I'm like, damn, this guy's got it all figured out. I'm like, I got to get my shit together. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, it's always, what you see on the outside isn't always what's like happening internally. Like
Exactly.
whenever you really start to like speak to anybody, it's, I have buddies that, their business is just crushing it. They're, doing, almost 8 figures a year. They're like 20 years old and you're just like, man, like, you got 4 years on me because I'm 24 now. And your business is like, 2 or 3 times bigger than me. Like what the heck is going on? And, and then once you kind of start to dig deeper, it's like, oh yeah, they're still human. They have
Yeah,
the same exact issues and problems and, worries and doubts and insecurities that I do. Um,
exactly.
and so, yeah,
Well, and also like, I mean, this sounds competitive again, but like, we're all playing the long game. So who knows? Like in 20 years, who is gonna be at the top? Let's say, like quote unquote, right? Because it's like in the slight edge, this guy made all this money and then lost it all. That happens
Yeah.
to people so much. Like, you just don't hear about it a
Dude,
lot
I
because
heard,
as soon as they lose it all, you don't hear about them ever again. But that shit happens a lot.
yeah, it's survivorship bias. I heard this quote that stuck with me so heavily. I heard it really early on in entrepreneurship, and it was actually there was a time period for me where I started to make some decent money, and I was going crazy, man. I didn't have money before that, so I was like I bought a really nice car, and then I bought a house, and then I bought another really nice car, and I was like, oh, like I was just acting a fool. And then I heard this quote. This said, it was from this guy, Ed Milet. He has a pretty good podcast. And he said, I know a lot more people that used to be rich than currently are.
Damn.
And when I heard that, I was like, oh shit. Like, this is exactly how people go from like doing well to not, is, just spending your money on stupid crap.
Right.
And so right now I'm trying to really work on, maybe I'm not the best producer of income at this point, but I definitely am going to be the best at investing at. And so
Fuck
that's
yeah.
the goal right now.
That's awesome, bro. And okay, so that leads me to another question then. So what keeps you motivated? I mean, I know that's a general question, but like, what would you say is the thing that keeps you motivated the most?
That's a really interesting one. That's one that for me, when after you kind of have like some of those basic needs met, it's kind of like, we're always either moving away from pain or towards pleasure. And for me, when I look at my life, I don't really want to change all that much. Like, to be honest, I'm very happy with my living conditions. I have a good car. I have a good, house, and there's not really much that I want to change. So I'm not in pain, and I don't really feel like I'm chasing too much specific pleasure at this point. So that was a question that I had to really think about at the beginning of this year, as I was setting my goals. It's like, okay, I want to invest 1.25 million. Well, why? Like, why does that matter? Why that number? And why does it matter to have more? And what the conclusion that I kind of came to is, I feel like I'm slowly, as my company is getting bigger, we currently have 17 employees. As my company is getting bigger, I feel like my role is to be um, a facilitator of information, really to be an aggregator. There's so much really impressive and beautiful information that's out there that just is buried beneath pages, or complex or difficult to understand books, or whatever it is. And so as my company continues to grow, I'm like, okay, this is the role that I need to go into. I need to be an aggregator of information and kind of be like a chief communication officer, where I am communicating powerful messages in simplified ways to my team in order to help them grow and develop. And what that means to me is it's kind of twofold. My thing that I want to really do at this point is develop the people in my team. Like, that is such a rewarding experience for me, to see somebody accomplish like the same things financially that I, aimed for, just internally inside of my team.
That's
Has been
awesome.
very rewarding. And then also, beyond that, for me is really aiming towards mastery. Whenever you understand something, there's many levels to it. The difference between an eighth grade football team and an NFL player is massive. That is drastic. That's like,
Right.
operating at a 7% versus a 98%. But when you're looking at, two football teams that are like, both in the NFL, the worst NFL team would probably still school, 99% of college teams. And so what we're looking at is like the little nuances in skill set that they have. And so, that for me is, I guess, what I'm trying to aim for with a lot of the skill sets that I'm looking to develop, is develop the nuances and increase my skill set from, what might currently be a 70% leadership to 75%.
Damn. Well, that's how I know you're going to make it to your goals. Like, if your aim is just to get better and like master your craft, like that's a good fucking goal. And I feel like that will eventually lead to whatever financial goal you set, as long as you're still focused on that mission. That's super cool. I would say
Yeah,
for me, it's kind
absolutely.
of similar. Like,
What's motivating you?
yeah, for me, it's also mastery. Like, getting better. Like, for example, some things that bring me a lot of joy are seeing where I was in terms of knowledge, let's say even like design and aesthetic, just where I was like 4 years ago versus now, and everything I know, like that brings me a lot of happiness. I'm not even talking about financially. Just like like you said, the mastery, to me, that's like, that motivates me a lot. And like knowing that in 4 years it'll be even better, it's like, damn, that's gonna be sick.
Right.
So that's why now I'm like, okay, I'm trying my best to find like the areas where I really want to focus, because now I understand that long term, like I still want to be doing what I love. And since I get really motivated from mastery, I'm trying to master what I do. Therefore, yeah, it's just really exciting to know that. But the other thing that keeps me motivated, I would say, is just I know that it's not really realistic to be happy all the time, but what I do aim for is like being fulfilled every day. Like every day, like at the end of the day, I want to be able to feel like I just had a good day, you know? Even whether or
Right.
not it's I made a ton of money, or whether or not I like achieved my goals. Like I just want to know that I like did some good work, and I was like fully present, and I just had a good fucking day. I know that that may sound like, I don't know how that may sound, but that's something I've been thinking a lot about lately. I have a friend here that's like from Minneapolis, and he's like the most wholesome person I've ever met, and he's like a really smart founder. He has like this really cool app.
Okay.
And that's, we met up at the beginning of the year. We had like a little dinner, and he's working for like a crypto company now too. He has like a little bit of equity in this like crypto exchange that is being built here. So he's very involved in crypto. He's
awesome.
a Bitcoin maximalist. But he told me that he was like, I was like, oh yeah, my goal is to, focus on TikTok content for my e-commerce brands, and then just try to grow my community as much as possible, and like provide a ton of value. And then he's like, oh, cool. Like my goal is just to like have a good day every day. I was like, what? I don't know. That just kind of like blew my mind. I was like, what the fuck? But this guy,
Yeah.
dude, I'm telling you,
Dude,
like
I get it.
he's awesome, and he's so wholesome.
That's awesome. I always love meeting people like that. I totally get it though. At the very beginning of this year, last year I set like 9 goals, and they were all kind of like, they were kind of at odds with one another.
Mm-hmm.
And, like if I accomplish this one, the other one is more difficult. And so this coming year, I was like, okay, in 2022, I'm only going to set 3 goals, one for health, one for wealth, one for happiness. Those are the core things I want to focus on and what I want to get better at. Okay, cool. How am I going to do this? So like for wealth, it was like, okay, I want to have a certain amount invested, not like grow my company to a certain amount. I want to grow my personal net worth. So
Mm-hmm.
that means I need to grow my company in order to grow my personal net worth. Okay, easy. Then the second one was like my health. And I was like, all right, I want to get up to 160 pounds and have 6-pack abs. Okay, easy. Then I got to the happiness one, and I was like, how do you set a goal for happiness?
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Like what does, and I sat there for like, it wasn't, I didn't sit there. I was thinking about this. I was pondering this for a good 3 to 4 days. Like, okay, what type of goal can I set here? I finally came to one conclusion that I felt like was good, but it is kind of difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, bro. I mean, that's what I'm saying. And it's funny because it's like one of those simple things, like happiness. Like it's such a simple concept, like, be an optimist, whatever. But yeah, in practice, it's like literally so hard. And I think what,
It is
to
hard.
me, the solution or the answer to that was what I saw in my friend, which is just like to be present and like, think about now, and don't always just think so far in the future, and like don't be so calculated all the time. Like sometimes you just need to just like kind of turn your brain off, more or less. So that's something really interesting that I learned this year. So okay, somebody asked a question. They said,
Can I just say my quick answer to how
oh yeah,
what my goal was for happiness?
yeah, go for it. Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
my
please.
goal for happiness was to get out of my comfort zone daily.
Ooh.
And the reason that I decided that that was going to be the thing that I was going to set for my happiness is because I feel like for myself, I am the happiest whenever I am growing, whenever I'm becoming better, whenever I'm trying something new. And those moments are when I'm the most present. So it kind of ties very
Damn.
heavily into like what you're saying, where it's like be more present. I'm like, when am I the most present? It's when I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone. And so, what has that looked like for me? That's like a variety of different things. I just spoke at a conference a couple of days ago, so that was like unique. Going through and messaging people that I wouldn't message otherwise. Going golfing. Like I'm awful at golfing, and I always like wanted to golf, but I was like always scared to, because I just it's there's pressure because there's people behind you that are also trying to golf and like they're just moving way faster. So
True.
just like kind of stepping out of my comfort zone in little ways has been the answer for me.
Oh, dude, that's such a good one. I actually, yeah, I agree, bro. Whenever I grow or like whenever I'm like courageous in like even small ways, that gives me a lot of happiness. Like even stupid shit like I don't know, like if I got my waiter got something wrong and like I'll say it. Yeah, like I mean, just little things like that
Yeah,
where
yeah.
I just try to find joy in those little moments. Personally, it really helps me, and it just like you said, yeah, it helps me
Yeah.
grow too, and that makes me happy. So,
And
oh yeah,
I
go for it, go for it.
realized by doing this that, sorry, this will be the last thing I say on it. It's been a really big passionate point for me. I've realized
Hmm.
that your comfort zone is really like a rubber band. So as you start to kind of expand this comfort zone, you slowly stretch it out a little bit farther, a little bit farther, a little bit farther. But the moment that you stop pushing on your comfort zone, it kind of retracts back to its original size. And
Yeah,
everybody's comfort zone is like, a different size or whatever. But I think it's so important to constantly just put a little bit of pressure on that comfort zone so that you're continuously expanding it. And because the moment that you stop, it just goes back to its normal size.
true. Yeah, bro. No, I love that. And I mean, this so far, this conversation has been awesome. I want to ask you. So somebody asked, what time do you sleep every night? Because you said that you wake up at 4. So they're just curious, like what time do you go to bed at night?
Yeah. So, so this is a great question. Yeah, and ask more questions, guys. I always love getting questions from people that are listening. So for me, I go to bed at 8, which my girlfriend hates, um, because she wants to do date night, and I'm like, okay, let's do it at 5. And she's like, what do you mean we're gonna go on a date at 5? And I'm like, I got to be in bed by 8. But yeah, I go to bed at 8 p.m. and I wake up at 4. Usually, I'll stop getting on tech, like my computer and stuff like
Hmm.
that, around 7:30. It's not perfect, like last night, I went and had dinner with a couple of friends. I was out until like 8:30, and so I got a little bit less sleep last night. But I try to keep it right around 8 every single
Nice.
day.
Damn. Yeah, I guess that's what it takes. I have been waking up a little bit earlier too. My early though is more like 7:30. But still, it feels good, bro. I think what I really love most about waking up at that time is, well, first of all, I made like a little ritual for myself. Like I get some coffee and then I like read a little bit on my iPad. Like I read some manga. That's been really cool lately, and it's just like a really blissful way to start my
Nice.
day. And then also in the morning, like it's so quiet and like nobody. Like I live with Taylor, and sometimes we'll like talk a lot in the morning, which is obviously amazing. I love it, but yeah, it is distracting. So sometimes if I wake up a little bit extra early, it's just nice to be able to get like just some quiet, and you can get some really good work done. So I can only imagine what that's like at 4 a.m. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people feel like, oh, like you have to wake up early to like be successful or whatever. That's not at all like my thought personally. I just feel like I operate better like really early in the morning. Some people like stay up really late. They'll stay up till like 2 or 3, and
Yeah.
that's when they operate the best. And I think that it's like if you operate the best that time, stay up during that time and wake up later. I
Yeah, I
have
like
friends
that.
that, absolutely crush it and they wake up at like 1 p.m.
Yeah, like that's a good distinction to make. Like you definitely don't have to. There's no rules to anything, man. That's what I actually love, and what most people don't really understand. And it's something I didn't understand until not too long ago. Is that there's really not one way to do like anything, like literally anything.
Right.
So like you said, yeah, like okay, maybe you want to get more done. Like maybe waking up earlier is not the solution to that. Maybe you just need to like stay up later and get extra work done, or something like, or another thing you mentioned today is like batching things. I feel like that would really help with getting more stuff done. So yeah, like
And what
everybody
it all
listening.
kind of comes down to is just feedback loops, right?
Right.
Sorry,
Exactly.
but
No, no,
I was
no,
just gonna
that's
say what
fine.
it comes back to is just feedback loops. You do something, you get a little bit of data on how it worked for you, and then you make a decision from there. And so for me, I used to stay up till like 1 or 2, and I'm like, man, I feel like garbage the next day. I was like, okay, well, let me try waking up at 7, and then I was like, okay, I feel pretty good, and then I woke up at 6, and I'm like, oh, now I have like an extra hour before like any of my team members are messaging me, and I was like, what if I did 5? So it wasn't like, oh, just tomorrow I'm gonna do it. It was just kind of split testing my life, trying to optimize it. Uh,
That's funny. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Okay, now I want to ask you. So now I want to get back into like a little bit more e-com stuff. So you run an email and SMS agency, right? And I mean, actually, for those of you that, well, everyone in here is a tier 2 member. So, um, but I guess everyone listening on YouTube or whatever, sign up for tier 2 if you want to get access to this. But Jonathan has some content in the course, about email marketing. So that's great. But I want to ask you, so what are some things right now that you would recommend for a brand that's like, let's say they have something that's like working. So this is the reason I mentioned this is because this is what helped us the most when it came to email marketing. But like when you have something that's breaking even, let's say on ads, how would you use email marketing and SMS to like get them over the edge of being profitable?
yeah, that's a fantastic question. Okay, I have a lot to say here, so if I end up talking too long, just
Oh,
cut me
go
off.
for it.
But I'll structure it as cleanly as possible. Okay, so for me, I think the most important secret for growing an e-commerce brand really rapidly is whoever could pay the most to acquire a new customer ultimately wins.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the very basis of that, that means that you need to make your customer journey extremely profitable. And that's why I love email and SMS, because so much of that customer journey can be automated pretty quickly. And so whenever I'm looking at a brand and I'm trying to say, okay, how are we going to go through and start kind of plugging some of the holes inside of their funnel, which is really why you use email and SMS. You have a store and it's kind of like a leaky bucket. You're putting in a bunch of money through, Facebook, TikTok, Google Ads, or whatever. And some of those are resulting in sales, but some of those sales are just pouring out to the wayside and never getting recovered.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's two apps that we'll use. We'll use Klaviyo and SMS Bump for the majority of our clients. We use those because they have great data and they also have really awesome templates for you to be able to build off of. Now, one of the quotes that I always think about is from Tony Robbins, and he says, if you want to be successful, find somebody who has already achieved the results you want and then
Mm-hmm.
model them. And then you'll get the same results, right? So, what I would always recommend if somebody's just getting started with email, model other people. There's 2 sites that we use inside of our agency. I'm going to give away all the secrets here, but
Oh,
whatever.
baby.
So, so we use 2 websites. One is called milled.com. That's milled.com. The other one is called reallygoodemails.com. So that's going to give you 2 resources that are basically they just scrape a bunch of emails from some of the world's biggest brands and a bunch of small brands too. And they just show you what their copy looks like, what their design looks like, where it is inside of their email sequence. So it's super useful.
Wow. Yeah, this
And
is
then
super
beyond,
useful.
yeah, are you checking it out?
Yeah, I pulled them up.
Yeah. Yeah, they're cool. So yeah, I would number one, I'd model. Number 2 is okay, how do you write your emails? And even think about it for your how many YouTube subscribers do you have?
92K.
90,000?
Yeah, yeah, true.
Like imagine getting all those people inside of a stadium. Like
Yeah,
that'd
that
be
would be crazy. When I
nuts.
think
Like
about
you
that, I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah, that'd be it's insane. It's insane the power of the internet. But one of the things that is really beneficial that we started doing about a year ago that made me think of this is we started building out what we call a UGC generator. So this is basically just after somebody, what is UGC? It's user generated content. Why do you want to collect UGC? Well, one, you could use it as reviews on side of your website. You could then go through and use it inside of your ads. And then also it kind of builds a little bit of a understanding on like, okay, who is actually buying these products? And, kind of gives you a little bit of a reminder like, oh yeah, there's actually real people that I'm serving, which is what I look at whenever I'm building a brand or building a business. It's like I'm serving a group of people here. And I think it kind of gives you a little bit of it reminds you of the people behind it. So how do you build out a UGC generator? I just want to mention this one because this is like the last like
Yeah,
really
I'm really
important flow that I
interested.
think could be beneficial. So after somebody makes a purchase inside of Klaviyo, you can set up an automation that will basically send them an email that gets triggered. So the automation will start after somebody has made a purchase. So let's just say that Arie bought one of my water bottles today. If he bought one of my water bottles today, now that automation is going to be triggered. We start that with a delay. So out of the gates, let's just say that my water bottles usually get delivered to people's houses in 14 days. I'll put on a 14-day delay. And then on that 14th day, I'm going to send you a message, Arie. And I'm going to say, hey, Arie, thank you so much for buying John's water bottles. What we have here is, this product. This is how it works, whatever, kind of indoctrinate them. And then you could go through and say, if you want to get a $1 refund, send a picture through this link, and as long as it meets this criteria, we will give you a $1 refund on the product that you just bought. The reason that you would do that is so that you could go through and collect UGC. We just had one of our brands that we've been working with for about a year. They were actually like the third or fourth person that we implemented this structure of a flow on, and they just crossed 2,000 pieces of UGC. And the UGC that we have for them are pictures, unboxing videos, and testimonials. And so we made that like a tiered system where it was $1 for a picture. I believe it was $3 for an unboxing video and $5 for a testimony.
Wow.
And having those videos and those pictures inside of their website has, obviously really helped their credibility and, how much social proof they have.
Dude, that's so funny. I'm looking at the e-commerce tab in the tier 2, and Hannah, the previous person that I interviewed, she literally just posted this yesterday, like basically exactly what you're talking about, which is she mentioned it as, because we were talking about feedback scores and how to get like better feedback scores on Facebook and stuff. And she said exactly that she'll do a rebate, like she'll offer her customers a rebate, like a $5 rebate on the orders that they placed to give a good like survey review basically. That's really smart. And I mean, I think Looks Reviews has like an automated email that they send out where you can get like, 15% off your next order for like a review. But this is kind of like a couple levels above that. That's a really smart strategy.
Yeah, I watched your video with Hannah. She seems like a killer.
Hell yeah.
But yeah,
Hannah's
that's
a beast.
very similar, very similar thought process. And obviously, it's like, if your feedback score is hurting, do that. But if you don't have any issues with your feedback score, then maybe you could collect UGC. It just kind of depends on the situation. We have a couple of customers that have done a very similar thing with feedback.
That's interesting. Yeah, UCG is like the name of the game. I love the idea of, I mean, right now for example, with the brand that I have with Taylor, like one of our biggest focuses is just sending out like free products like every single day to influencers to get UCG content back, like to smaller influencers that are just going to take the product in exchange for content, and getting that UCG back. But what's really cool, and I mean, I don't know if this is a black hat strategy or whatever, I'm pretty sure it's totally fine and legal, but we asked them to give us a review too. And so the way that I do it is like we give them 100% off code, and they'll check out in our store. So then we get the Pixel Fire, and obviously they're relevant. It's like within our demographic. That's why we found them, or that's why we reached out to them.
Right.
So then we get the Pixel Fire, we get their email, and then also we get a fire review and UCG. So you get like so many things out of like just a free product, that I think it's super worth it. And I think it's totally fine, right?
Yeah, I would say that's. I don't think there's any issue with that.
I mean, they don't have a problem with it, and they genuinely like the product. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, all of these things that we're talking about too work so well when you build something of value, like it's going to be a lot harder to sell somebody on like a rock than it is on like, some really nice product that they really like, unless they love rocks.
Well, I don't
then it
know,
might be
man.
really
Have you
easy.
ever seen pet rocks?
Yeah. I literally just thought about that as soon as I said that. I was like, fuck, actually, there's like a 9-figure brand
There
that
are
just
some
sells
really nice
rocks.
rocks out there.
True. So,
Yeah, but that's kind of the basis of it, though, right? Like if
yeah,
you
it is.
provide value, it's always way easier to scale than if you don't provide value.
Facts. So I want to ask you a couple more questions. I know that you're a busy guy, so I don't want to take like a ton of your time here. But this has been really fun so far, and I mean that's what I envision. Like I
Yeah.
want to do this more because it's fun, but also it's like valuable for people, and I can post it on YouTube and everything. So, but I want to ask you. So, what advice would you give to somebody that's just starting? Because a lot of the people that will watch this on YouTube, for example, they are just starting and they don't really necessarily know like what to do, or I don't know, like what's just a good piece of advice that you would give to them?
So for somebody that's just getting ready to start their business,
Yep.
so I would say two things. I'll say the first one. The first one is going to be just stick to one thing. Don't try to do a million things. Just do one thing really well. Get incredibly good at it, and you'll see the fruits of your labor at some point. The second thing is going to be being very mindful of the opportunity vehicle that you get into before you start on it. So, okay, what does that mean? That basically means that if you are getting ready to start your business, be very mindful of the type of business and the business model that you end up choosing. Obviously, a lot of the people that are here are based in e-commerce, but there's a lot of things that you can learn about opportunities before you jump into them. Because again, it's a lot more like marriage rather than a hookup. So for me, one of the biggest realizations that I had is that there's really two different types of risk. There is going to be execution risk, and then there's market risk. So what is execution risk? Execution risk is like opening up an Italian restaurant in your local neighborhood. People around you eat Italian food. It's already popular. And so the only risk that you're taking on by opening up an Italian restaurant is whether or not you're going to be good enough to beat the other guys across the street. So you're just hoping that your execution is going to be good. There's other types of risks that are more market risk, and you are looking to hopefully find a good market. So an example of this would be Facebook. At the time, whenever Facebook first started blowing up in popularity, there was really only a handful of people that had carved a path. MySpace would probably be one of them. But at the end of the day, they were taking on the risk of hoping that the market would actually give a crap on based on whatever they're working on. So it ended up working out with Facebook, but a lot of the times it doesn't end up working out, and we just don't hear about them. And so if it were me, understanding that little small difference is important, because if you are a new entrepreneur, I would highly recommend starting on an execution business rather than a market risk business, because it is so much easier to start and scale an execution-based business rather than a market risk.
Damn, that's it.
Does that make sense?
No, that's a great way to put it, and I actually hadn't really thought of it like that. Not that I'm over here starting businesses all the time or anything, but that's very interesting. And actually, I like that you said that this is gonna be this interview or whatever, this podcast, whatever you want to call this, is gonna be stored and archived in the NetSphere library forever. And hopefully, like 3 years from now, somebody's seeing this and hearing that, because the vision, even though like you mentioned, it is mostly e-commerce. But I'm glad that we've talked about things that are beyond just e-commerce and that are just, entrepreneur principles, because in the future, I would like this group to be filled with different types of people pursuing different market opportunities, like you said, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's really cool, bro. I think that's really good advice. And I really appreciate you giving your time to us here. I mean, I know that that's nothing to, I'm really appreciative of that for sure. And I hope that everyone else here is too.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I always love these types of talks, man. Super
Me
excited
too.
to hopefully provide some value. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I actually, before you go, I do want to ask you one more question because somebody asked. So I just want to, I don't want to leave any questions
of course.
unanswered. So it's a simple one, but
Yeah, let's do it.
how on average, how many hours do you work per day?
Ooh, so this is something that I've been working on more recently. For the first couple of years of my business, I really valued working really long hours, and I really subscribed to the whole hustle culture mentality. So like Gary Vee always says, it's like hustle, 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 hustle. And while that's great, I did realize something more recently, especially as I started to progress more in cellular systems and scale it more. And the big realization that I had is that work is about progression and not about perspiration. And so, what does that mean? Basically, that means that a lot of people value working really hard and sweating and like going through and trying to put in as many hours as possible. But the thing that actually matters is progression. And so, if I can make the same amount of progression as somebody else in 5 hours, why am I going to work? As somebody else that worked 15 hours, why would I opt for the 15-hour route? And so, for me, I'm really valuing based off of the amount of progression I have and not based on the amount that I work. With that being said, I used to work about 10 hours or so Monday through Saturday. And then on Sunday, I would take a half day and work probably closer to about 5. So whatever, I'm not great at math. What is that, like 65 hours?
Yeah,
I
something
don't
like
do
that.
public math. And
Same.
and so yeah, so that's where I was previously. I would say now I'm probably closer to about 9 hours or 8 hours a day. So like I'm pretty much done with my day. I'll probably work a little bit longer, and then I'll pretty much be done, which is really nice. And then on Saturday I work like 4 hours, and on Sunday I don't.
Damn, that's a nice routine, bro. That's actually really really nice.
Yeah.
I would say I'll answer your question too, because why not? But for me, I tend to, yeah, for me, it's like about 8 hours a day too, just like your average work day. But I don't really know because I just like my work is a little bit sporadic and I really love what I do. So like I don't really consider it work, and that sounds really cliche, but it's true. And I do so many different things throughout the day that like sometimes I'll be working till like 9 or 10, and I'm like, but I didn't really work the entire time. You know what I mean? So it's really hard to say,
Yeah.
especially when your work sometimes doesn't feel like work. It's hard to know how long you're actually working per day. But I love that, and
Right.
I think it's important to try to aim for like you know, trying to find the things that give you the most leverage. So like not trying to necessarily work super hard. I'm not saying that working hard isn't good. I do think, if you work hard, you're probably going to make it. But
Yep.
I think, yeah, it's smart too to also find those like high leverage activities that just get you really far without putting in a ton of hours. But, if you can also put in a ton of hours, then
You
that's
know what
fine.
that Yeah, you know what the biggest thing that I learned was as far as that goes, as far as just getting leverage.
What?
For me, it was realizing that learning is work. And so the reason that I came to the conclusion that work is about progression and not about perspiration, the reason I came to that conclusion is because I realized for myself that I had an unhealthy relationship, I guess, with learning, in the sense that I would spend, an hour reading, but I would be like, oh, that's not work. Or I wouldn't go through and carve out time to learn something new because it wasn't working. And then I was like, wait, hold on. Like, why do I feel like learning or reading a book about something that is going to help my business? Why do I feel like that isn't working? And then it kind of opened up this whole can of worms for me where I was like, okay, working, it's just working with leverage, because whenever you are working, you're just putting in, time, effort, and energy. And what the output is, one action and then, maybe one lesson.
True.
But whenever you're learning, your output is zero because you didn't actually, do anything. But your experience is, 10x. It's 10 or 15 points. And so you're gaining experience with leverage whenever you're reading a book or going through a course or something, because you don't really have to go through all the hard-earned battles that person had to
True.
go through in order to learn those lessons. You just get to read them, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And so for me, I was like, oh okay, like I need to look at working and learning as the same thing. And so now, like from that 8 hours, 9 hours that I was mentioning work, a good hour or 2 hours of that every single day is reading and trying to learn something new and get better at my craft, and no longer feel guilty about it.
Damn, I love that. I think that's really, really good advice, especially for everyone here, because everyone here is trying to learn. And I think, including myself, like I definitely always make the time every day to learn stuff, not even consciously. Like I never really thought about it like that, where like it's work. But that makes sense. Like to me, like I would consider learning still like productive, because let's say in the terms that you set, like your output may be 0 while you're learning, but what if what you learn gives you like 100x output next time you do work or something like that, or like in the next year, whatever you learned, like it 20x'd your output because of that time where you did 0 output, but you were learning. So never not make time to learn because you need to work. I think learning is awesome and it's so fun. And I like doing things that are fun and productive, and learning to me is really fun and productive in that way. So that was very nice of you to say. Good call.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I think that's a good thing to, wrap all this up with. I feel like we could be literally talking for like 6 hours if we just let this go. But,
I totally
we ain't
agree,
got
man.
time for that, unfortunately. But yeah, so thanks again, Jonathan. And, I will say one thing. This was not even supposed to be any sort of plug or anything. It was just supposed to be like a little conversation. But I do think that Jonathan has the best email marketing agency in the game. I know from experience. And I remember when I first signed up with your agency, I was like, damn, bro, like this is like the best process I've ever seen for an agency. Because I've worked with multiple agencies in the past, and I'm not trying to dog on the agency game, but I've been pretty disappointed like 9 times out of 10. Whereas with your agency, I was like actually super, super pleased. I was like, damn, this guy really gets it, and this business is sick. So yeah, if anybody's watching this and you need email marketing, if this stuff was like too complicated, you don't want to do it yourself, hit up Jonathan. He's got the best agency in the game for this. So
I appreciate that. Yeah, and hopefully I was able to provide value to any of you guys that mode where you guys are looking to scale your store. And like Arie said, if you guys are looking to kind of take your email game to the next level, of course hit me up. But what I will say is, what we mentioned here, that'll get you 60-70% of the way anyway. So if you haven't tried some of that stuff, I'd recommend giving it a go.
Sick.
But thank you for having me, Arie. Really appreciate
the
time and opening up your audience.
Of course, bro. All right. Well, that wraps it up. Thank you guys again, and whoever's watching this, you guys are awesome. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk soon. All right. Peace.
Bye, guys.